Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Are you getting prepared to do your best ball drafts on DraftKings or on Underdog Fantasy? I'm going to give you 5 quarterbacks not being drafted as QB1s. Nobody in the top 12 in terms of ADP that could be your league winners in the second half of draft. So let's go.
He's a legend.
Want to take a second before we get going to talk about Rotowire.com. There is a link down below in the pinned comment, rotowire.com/smizzle. Go give them a visit. You get a free 10-day trial membership. Costs you absolutely nothing. You can use their entire draft kit, including their ADP tracker that we are using for this video right here. I am not going to be naming any of the quarterbacks here in top 12 in terms of ADP. This is for full PPR. You can sort by half PPR. You can make up your own rules. And just see how these guys have been tracking in every different league. So none of these guys, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Prescott, Wilson, Herbert, Rodgers, Brady, Stafford, Hurts, or Tannehill, you know who they are. We're going to try and identify 5 guys later that you can go with that are going to really help you out and possibly help you win your league. Our first quarterback that we're going to discuss is Joe Burrow. Yeah, I know that reports have looked like, you know what, he's a little bit iffy on his knee. We expected that. That's kind of baked into his ADP right now. But if you look at what Burrow did last year, and I've spoken about this in other videos as well, if you look at what Burrow did last year just in terms of passing volume before his injury, it was tremendous. Yeah, their offensive line is not great. We know that. They're going to be playing from behind a lot. We know that. They have also improved his pass catching core, and T. Higgins moves into his second year, giving him more polished pass catchers on the other end of the ball. One thing that he did not excel in was turning all of those pass attempts into touchdowns. A ridiculously low 3.5 passing touchdown percentage, which really can't sustain. That's something that's not going to happen. So expect some sort of regression to the mean in a positive way for Joe Burrow in his second year, assuming that he continues to get more comfortable with his own abilities throughout the preseason, gets a little bit more comfortable on that knee, and gets himself into a position where now he can deliver the ball to Jamar Chase, to T. Higgins, to Tyler Boyd, to Joe Mixon out in the flat, who is actually really good at making people miss after the catch, something that is extremely important for pass catching running backs. I think Joe Burrow could throw for 4.5 to 5.5% of his attempts turning into touchdowns this year, which would mean a massive upside for him. And with as much as they're going to have to throw with this team and as much as they project to throw with this team, big time upside outside of the top 10. His ADP right now, looking at all the different sites, right? So we have 12 team drafts on Fantrax, MFL, NFFC. You're looking at a draft choice between like 103, 95. You're drafting him late and it's dropping because of those camp worries that some people have. You're going to get him around the 10th round in most drafts, looking at half PPR on Underdog.com. He's going around pick 117, 118. So you're not going to have to pay a lot of draft capital to get him. And if you have used one of his, if you have used a draft pick on one of his wide receivers earlier, especially in best ball where stacking is optimal as opposed to your transactional leagues, I love the upside here, especially in leagues that allow for a bonus for 300 yards like DraftKings. Second quarterback on my list, Trey Lance. Now, there is some risk involved with this pick. The highs are going to be really high and the lows could be low. What we're not going to get is any confirmation from Coach Shanahan, who can't even guarantee that any of his players are going to be alive on Sunday, whether or not Trey Lance is going to be the starter in week 1. So I would not suggest drafting Trey Lance as your QB1 on your teams, but a great flyer as a QB2 with an ADP that is rising, and he may move into those top 12 quarterbacks sooner rather than later, but right now he fits the recommendations, the requirements for this video, falling outside of the top 12 quarterbacks, taken with an ADP over 100 on both sites. 109, I think, is his current ADP, but it could be rising based on that 80-yard touchdown that he threw in his first preseason outing. Now, that play was absolutely outstanding. And he chose, if you looked at Bill Barnwell, who tweeted out the overhead all 12s, like video game looking dots on the field and the routes that they ran, he had a shorter option on a drag going right to left, and he did not choose that option. He said, nah, I got this one way downfield, 50 yards out. Ends up being an 80-yard touchdown with 30 after the catch. Beautiful throw and catch, but he was not efficient with his throws. He does add an awful lot of ability with his legs, which is clearly a bonus. Anytime that you get quarterbacks that can potentially add 6 to 8 points with their legs every single game, they don't have to do all that much, especially on DraftKings with their scoring through the air, to reach that 20-point plateau per game that we want in best ball from our quarterback. You can stack him or double stack him with Kittle in the second round, with Ayuk in the fourth, or Bourne in the sixth or seventh. A single stack might be all that you need. And the thing that Trey Lance has that a lot of other teams don't have going for him in 2021 is a ridiculously soft run-in the championship weeks from 13 to 17. He has a ridiculously soft schedule that seem to be fast-paced games that do lead towards more quarterback efficiency, which is the biggest predictor of quarterback scoring rather than volume itself. My third quarterback on this list, same sort of look, Justin Fields. Give me the running quarterbacks, please. Quarterbacks that are going to add value with their legs outside of the top 12 that are being drafted. You're telling me I can pick somebody in rounds 10, 11, 12, 13 who's going to add something with his legs? Like I said, a quarterback that might add between 5 and 7.5, 5 and 8 points on the ground before they even throw a pass. That if he throws for 220 yards and 1 touchdown per game, those are extremely pedestrian numbers at quarterback in today's NFL, especially with the talent that he has on the outside, including Allen Robinson, Mooney, and an up-and-coming Cole Kmet, the non-copyright frog, running at tight end, who has looked outstanding so far in camp. If Justin Fields becomes the QB1 on this Chicago Bears team, and Justin Fields should really become the quarterback 1 on this Chicago Bears team sooner rather than later. His ADP sits somewhere in the 120s, depending on what site you're drafting on, lower, a round and a half to 2 rounds lower than Trey Lance, who may not start for the first 4, 5, 6 games of the season, but Justin Fields could start in week 1 or, the first 3, 4 games of the year. There's no way that you can tell me that if you watch Justin Fields every day, and if you watch Andy Dalton every day, then Andy Dalton gives you the best chance to be a winning football team. So we want him on the field instead of holding a clipboard on the sideline. That's how he's going to be more profitable for us as fantasy players. So the sooner he starts, the better it is for your best ball teams. But I'd assume that he's going to start sooner rather than later based on talent levels and how he's looked both in camp and in their first preseason game. And the key is, if you spend top half of the first round equity on a quarterback in the NFL and you don't play that guy, you didn't draft him for you. If you're a coach, you drafted him for the guy who's about to replace you after this season. So you've got to get those guys on the field. I'm rooting for Justin Fields. I believe that he has the ability and the fantasy upside to really be a difference maker this year. My next guy is Tua Tagovailoa. I know that this one's going to create a lot of consternation, so to speak. He's a very divisive sort of quarterback. People that watched Tua last year are like, oh, he stinks. I would advise you to not come to your lifetime conclusion on who a quarterback can be, especially for fantasy purposes, after their rookie year. Especially after their rookie year where they were coming off of a hip surgery and weren't ready to play at the beginning of the season. Coming off of a rookie year where it was a COVID 2020 and there were no off-season OTAs. There was no preseason games for him to get work in. On top of having that, and there was already somebody taking the QB1 snaps in Fitzmagic. So that was a really weird offseason and rookie season for Tua. He never got comfortable. He never felt comfortable. Enter year 2, enter 2021. And since the end of that season, January, February, March, he has been taking every snap as the QB1 in an offense that has been more tailored around his skill set. He does have ability to run the ball. We saw that he can throw it in college, and we know that he can throw it at this level. And they added 2 guys that I believe are difference makers at wideout. The rookie from Alabama, Waddle, and adding Will Fuller, who has vastly improved the fantasy numbers of every quarterback that he's thrown with because of his ability to take the roof off of defenses and force safeties to be in too deep coverage over top of him. So it opens up everything else. He improves the quarterback rating for all of the quarterbacks that he plays with. Basically, Deshaun Watson. If you look at Deshaun Watson, he averaged like 4 or 5 more fantasy points per game in games where Will Fuller played versus the games where he didn't play. And I believe that he will have that similar effect on Tua, as can somebody like Waddle, who is a speed demon, but also an exceptional route runner, on top of already having Devontae Parker, getting back Preston Williams, having a very athletic tight end in Mike Gesicki. Tua right now on the DK Sportsbook has a over-under for pass touchdowns at 25, has an over-under for passing yards at like 4,000 or 4,100 yards. If you're telling me that in round 15, I can get somebody who's 14 or 15 is going to throw or expected to throw for over 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns, who definitely has some ability with his legs, pocket plus passer or minimum, and possibly a mobile quarterback, while not a running quarterback like Fields or Lance or Hurts or any of those guys who are, you know, Lamar Jackson or Kyler. He's not at that level of running. He's not going to run it 10 times a game, but if he runs it 4, if he is Dak Prescott on the ground, adding to what he can potentially be through the air, Tua can definitely be somebody who is easily stacked, as his wide receivers are too cheap as well, and makes for a great best ball target in rounds 14 and 15. And my final one, you had to know it was going to be Fitz, didn't you? An ADP in the 150s to 160s, depending on what site you use. Good Lord, it's too cheap. This team under Ryan Fitzpatrick has seen, without Ryan Fitzpatrick, has not seen guys get the most because they have not had great quarterback play. Terry McLaurin, we have not seen his ceiling yet, as talented as he is. Logan Thomas was just signed to a contract extension, the same sort of contract extension that we saw before last season for Darren Waller. They are investing in the tight end position, and a tight end who ran more routes per quarterback dropbacks in 2020 than anybody else. More than Travis Kelce, more than Darren Waller, more than Mark Andrews. So with those sort of tools, Ryan Fitzpatrick, everywhere that he has been the last 5 years, he has elevated the talent around him in terms of their fantasy output. So if he is able to take the toolsy guys that he has on this offense, not to mention Antonio Gibson, who is tremendous in college as a pass catcher, and JD McKissick, who is also good out of the backfield, combined with his running ability, he has always created some points at least on the ground, has Fitzmagic. We have the recipe here for an easily stackable quarterback with easily buyable targets on the outside between McLaurin in the 2nd round, Curtis Samuel in the 6th or 7th, Logan Thomas in the 9th or 10th round, depending on where you're drafting. You can easily single, double, or triple stack Fitz, or if you want to go super cheap, Adam Humphries working out of the slot in rounds 18. Fitzmagic could be an absolute find for you at pick 150 through 165, depending on where you're drafting. Those are my 5 QBs outside of the QB1s from QB 13 and down that I think can be absolute difference makers, and possibly by the end of the season break into that QB1 rank and be one of the top 12 quarterbacks on the season and show a massive profit versus their ADP. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, look out for more as the season gets here closer. But until then, look out for a video here and over there. Bye. He's a legend.